My son saved me from my brother-in-law, who tried to rape me during the family reunion. I was locked in that bedroom, my back pressed against the wall, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would burst right out of my chest. The door was shaking. Boom, boom, boom. Each kick was louder than the last. I could hear the wood splintering, cracking under the force of his rage. And I screamed. God, I screamed like I'd never screamed before. Marquis, Marquis, please. The door burst open. Darnell stood there in the doorway, his eyes wild, his chest heaving, and in that moment, I didn't recognize him anymore. This wasn't my brother-in-law. This wasn't the man who'd stood at my husband's funeral and told everyone what a blessing Vincent had been. This was a stranger. A monster. He came at me. I tried to fight, but he was stronger, bigger, and before I knew it, his hands were on me, tearing, grabbing, pushing me down onto that bed. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. All I could do was scream and pray that someone, anyone, would hear me. And then I heard it. The sound of tires screeching outside. Footsteps pounding up the stairs. The bedroom door flew open again, and there he was. My son. My Marquis. He didn't hesitate. He didn't freeze. He launched himself at Darnell like a freight train, ripping him off of me and slamming him into the hallway with a force that shook the entire house. I never thought the man who gave the eulogy at my husband's funeral would try to destroy me 6 months later. But that night at the lake house, I learned that grief reveals people's true faces. And some faces are more terrifying than you could ever imagine. But let me back up. Let me tell you how I got there. Because this didn't start that night. It had been building for years, and I just didn't want to see it. My name is Celestine Morrison. I'm 48 years old, and 6 months ago, I became a widow. My husband, Vincent, died of a sudden heart attack right there in our living room while we were watching TV. One minute he was laughing at some silly sitcom, and the next minute he was gone. Just like that. No warning. No goodbye. Just gone. Vincent and I had been married for 27 years. We built a life together. A beautiful life. We raised 2 incredible children. My son Marquis is 26 now, a software engineer living in Atlanta, brilliant and kind just like his father. And my daughter Serena, she's 23, in her 2nd year of medical school, working herself to the bone because she wants to save lives the way she couldn't save her daddy's. Losing Vincent broke something inside me. Some days I'd wake up and forget he was gone. I'd roll over expecting to see him there, and instead, I'd find empty sheets and the faint smell of his cologne that I still sprayed on my scarves because I couldn't let him go completely. My silver-streaked natural hair, which Vincent always said made me look distinguished, now just made me feel old. My warm brown skin that he used to trace with his fingers felt cold without his touch. I was 48 years old and felt like my life was already over. But the Morrison family wouldn't let me disappear into my grief. Vincent's mother, Mama Francine, she's 72 years old and stronger than women half her age. She called me every single day. His sisters checked on me. His brother Darnell, he came by the house with flowers, with groceries, always asking if I needed anything. They wrapped me up in their love and told me over and over again, "You're still a Morrison. You're still family. Vincent would want us to take care of you." And I believed them. I trusted them. Why wouldn't I? They were all I had left of Vincent. So when Mama Francine called me that Thursday afternoon in late June, her voice bright and warm through the phone, I should have been happy. "Celestine, baby," she said, "the family reunion is coming up. First weekend of July, down at the lake house in Lake Oconee. I want you there." My stomach dropped. The Morrison family reunion. It was Vincent's favorite event of the year. He'd spend weeks planning games for the kids, picking out the perfect playlist, arguing with his brothers about who made the best ribs. The thought of going without him felt impossible. "Mama Francine, I don't know," I said, my voice shaking. "It's going to be so hard without Vincent there." "I know, baby. I know it will. But you're still a Morrison. You're still my daughter. And Vincent would want you there. He'd want you surrounded by family, not sitting in that house all alone drowning in memories." She was right. God, she was right. I'd been living like a ghost for 6 months, barely leaving the house except to go to my job teaching English at the high school. I'd turned down every invitation, every offer to go out for coffee or dinner. I was stuck, frozen. And maybe this reunion, as painful as it would be, was exactly what I needed. Okay, I whispered. Okay, Mama. I'll be there. That's my girl. Now listen, if you want to come up a day early and help me get the cabin ready, I'd love the company. You know these old bones don't move like they used to. I smiled for the first time in days. I'd like that. I'll drive up on Friday. When I told Marquis about the reunion, he was working from home that day, his laptop open on my kitchen table, those glasses he wears when he's been staring at screens too long perched on his nose. He looked so much like Vincent it hurt sometimes. The reunion? Mom, that's great. You need to get out, he said, already pulling up his calendar. Let me see. I've got this massive project deadline, but I can wrap it up Friday night and drive up Saturday morning. I'll be there before lunch. You don't have to rush, baby. I know you're busy. Mom. He gave me that look, the one that said he wasn't negotiating. I'm coming. End of discussion. I called Serena next, but she was in the middle of studying for a massive exam. Mom, I'm so sorry. I can't miss this test. But Marquis will be there with you, right? You won't be alone. I won't be alone, baby. The whole family will be there. And that was true. The whole family would be there, including Darnell. I should tell you about Darnell. He's 51, Vincent's younger brother by 3 years. Where Vincent was gentle and steady, Darnell was intense and magnetic. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with an athletic build he maintained by running every morning. He had this smile, this charming smile that made people trust him instantly. After his divorce from his wife Janine last year, that smile had been appearing at my door more and more often. He'd given the most beautiful eulogy at Vincent's funeral. He talked about growing up with Vincent, about what a good man his brother was, what a devoted husband and father. He cried. We all cried. And at the end, he walked up to me, put his hands on my shoulders and whispered, I'll take care of you now. I promise. At the time, I thought it was just grief talking. Just a brother trying to honor his brother's memory by looking after his widow. But now, looking back, I wonder if I heard something else in his voice that day. Something I didn't want to acknowledge. So on Friday morning, I packed my bag. Summer dresses, comfortable shoes, Vincent's cologne that I couldn't leave behind. I loaded up my car and started the drive to Lake Oconee. It's about an hour and a half from where I live in Decatur, and the whole drive, my hands were shaking on the steering wheel. My mind kept playing memories of past reunions. Vincent flipping burgers on the grill. Vincent jumping off the dock with Marquis and Serena. Vincent pulling me into his arms at sunset and telling me he loved me. By the time I pulled up to the Morrison family lake house, tears were streaming down my face. The cabin sat right on the water, surrounded by tall pine trees, with a long wooden dock stretching out into Lake Oconee. It was beautiful and peaceful, and it had always felt like a sanctuary. But that day, as I parked my car and grabbed my bag from the trunk, something felt different. Something felt off. The front door opened before I could knock, and there was Mama Francine, her arms already reaching for me, her silver hair pulled back in the bun she always wore, her warm smile exactly like Vincent's. There's my girl, she said, pulling me into a hug that smelled like cocoa butter and love. And right behind her, standing in the doorway with that charming smile, was Darnell. Celestine, he said, his voice smooth as honey. I'm so glad you came. He stepped forward and wrapped his arms around me, and I hugged him back because that's what you do with family. But the hug lasted too long. His hands pressed against my lower back, pulling me closer than I wanted to be. And when he finally let go, his fingers lingered, trailing down my spine in a way that made my skin crawl. I stepped back quickly, forcing a smile. Good to see you, Darnell. Let me get your bag, he said, already reaching for it before I could protest. And that's when I noticed it. The way he was looking at me. Not like a brother-in-law. Not like family. But like something else entirely. Like he was seeing me for the first time. Like he'd been waiting for this moment. Mama Francine didn't notice. She was already heading into the kitchen, talking about all the food she was planning to make, asking me to help her season the chicken for tomorrow. I followed her, grateful for the distraction, but I could feel Darnell's eyes on me the entire time. Watching. Waiting. That night, after we finished preparing food and Mama Francine had gone to bed early because her arthritis was acting up, I found myself alone in the living room with Darnell. He'd opened a bottle of wine, poured 2 glasses without asking if I wanted any, and sat down on the couch next to me. Too close. Way too close. "It's nice, isn't it?" he said, staring out at the lake through the big picture window. "Being here. Just the 2 of us." "Mama Francine is upstairs," I said quickly. "You know what I mean." He turned to look at me, and there was something in his eyes that made my heart start racing. "It's peaceful. No crowds. No distractions. Just us." I stood up, needing space, needing air. I should probably get to bed. Long day tomorrow. But he stood up too, stepping into my path. "Don't go yet.
Stay.
Talk to me." "Darnell, I'm tired. You're always tired lately. Always running away." His voice had an edge to it now, something sharp hidden under the smoothness. "Vincent never appreciated what he had, you know. He took you for granted." My blood went cold. "Don't you dare talk about Vincent like that. I'm just saying the truth." He moved closer, and I backed up until I hit the wall. "You're still young, Celestine. Still beautiful. You shouldn't waste your life mourning a man who's gone. He was your brother. And you were his wife."
Were.
Past tense. "But you're here now. With me." I pushed past him, my heart pounding, and practically ran to my bedroom. I locked the door behind me and stood there shaking, trying to convince myself that I'd misunderstood. That grief was making me paranoid. That Darnell was just being inappropriate, not dangerous. But I couldn't sleep that night. I lay in that bed staring at the ceiling, and memories started flooding back. Memories I'd buried because I didn't want to believe what they meant. Thanksgiving 3 years ago. We were all sitting around Mama Francine's dining room table, and I felt something on my thigh. A hand. Darnell's hand. Moving slowly up my leg under the table. I jumped up so fast I knocked over my water glass, and everyone laughed, thinking I was just clumsy. I moved my chair away from him, told myself it was an accident. But the way he smiled at me across the table, that wasn't an accident. Vincent's funeral. Everyone was crying, hugging, sharing stories. Darnell pulled me aside after his eulogy, and I thought he wanted to share a private moment of grief. Instead, he whispered in my ear, "I'll take care of you now." And the way he said it, the way his breath felt hot against my neck, made me feel sick. But I was drowning in grief, so I pushed it away. Told myself I was reading too much into it. 2 months ago. I was home alone, still in my pajamas at 2 in the afternoon because some days getting dressed felt impossible. The doorbell rang, and there was Darnell standing on my porch with flowers. Roses. Red roses. "I was in the neighborhood," he said, even though he lived 30 minutes away. "Thought you might need some company." I told him I was fine, took the flowers, and closed the door. But through the window, I watched him sit in his car for 10 minutes, just staring at my house before he finally drove away. The signs were all there. I just didn't want to see them. I grabbed my phone and texted Marquis, "Can you come up tonight instead of tomorrow? Something feels off." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. "Deadline hell, Mom. First thing in the morning, I promise. You okay?" I stared at that message for a long time. I could tell him the truth. I could tell him that his uncle was making me uncomfortable, that I was scared. But what if I was wrong? What if I was just being paranoid? What if I caused a family rift over nothing? "I'm fine," I typed back. "See you tomorrow." But I wasn't fine. And by tomorrow, fine would be a luxury I could barely remember. Before we continue, if you're finding this story powerful, please hit that subscribe button. Stories like Celestine's need to be heard, and your support helps us share more voices that matter. And I want to ask you something. Have you ever ignored red flags because you didn't want to believe something bad about someone you trusted? Drop your answer in the comments. Because what I'm about to tell you next, what happened the following day, taught me that ignoring those red flags can cost you everything. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of coffee and bacon. For a split second, still caught between sleep and consciousness, I thought it was Vincent in the kitchen. My heart lifted before reality crashed back down on me like a wave. Vincent was gone. And the man cooking breakfast downstairs was the last person I wanted to be alone with. I got dressed slowly, pulling on a simple cotton dress and tying a scarf around my hair, buying myself time before I had to face whatever was waiting for me downstairs. My phone showed no new messages from Marquis. He was probably already on the road, pushing through that deadline like the determined man I raised him to be. Just a few more hours, I told myself. Just hold on a few more hours. When I finally came downstairs, Darnell was at the stove, spatula in hand, looking like he belonged there. Like this was his kitchen. Like I was his to cook for. He turned when he heard my footsteps, and that smile spread across his face. That charming, dangerous smile. "Good morning, beautiful," he said, and something about the way he said beautiful made my skin crawl. "I made your favorite. Scrambled eggs with cheese, crispy bacon, and those buttermilk biscuits Mama taught me to make." He had made my favorite, which meant he'd been paying attention, which meant this wasn't casual. This was calculated. "Where's Mama Francine?" I asked, looking around for any sign of her. Still sleeping. Her arthritis was really bothering her last night. I checked on her earlier, and she said to let her rest. "The family won't be arriving until this evening anyway, so we've got the whole day." He said it like it was a good thing. Like being alone with him was something I should be grateful for. I poured myself coffee, keeping the kitchen island between us. I should go check on her. "She's fine, Celestine. Sit down. Eat. Let me take care of you." There it was again. That phrase. Take care of you. The same words he'd whispered at Vincent's funeral. The words that had been haunting me ever since. I didn't sit. I stood there gripping my coffee mug like it was a weapon, watching him pile food onto 2 plates. He carried them to the small kitchen table, set them down, and pulled out a chair for me. A gentleman's gesture that felt anything but gentle. "I'm not really hungry," I said. "You need to eat. You've lost weight since Vincent died. Too much weight." He walked over to me, and I backed up until I hit the counter. "I worry about you, Celestine. Someone needs to make sure you're taking care of yourself." "I'm fine, Darnell." "No, you're not. But you will be. I'm going to make sure of that." He reached out and touched my face, his thumb brushing across my cheek, and I flinched so hard I nearly dropped my coffee mug. He noticed. Of course he noticed. And instead of backing off, instead of apologizing, he smiled. Like my fear was funny to him. Like it meant something it absolutely should not mean. "Jumpy this morning, aren't we?" he said softly. I pushed past him, grabbed one of the plates, and forced myself to sit down at the table. If I ate quickly, if I just got through this breakfast, maybe he'd leave me alone. Maybe I was still overreacting. Maybe last night's weirdness was just a one-time thing, and today he'd go back to being normal Darnell. The Darnell, who was just Vincent's brother. Nothing more. But I knew better. Deep down, in that place where women's intuition lives, where we know things before we can prove them, I knew better. We ate in silence for a few minutes. I kept my eyes on my plate, shoveling eggs into my mouth without tasting them, just wanting this to be over. But Darnell was staring at me. I could feel his eyes on me, heavy and insistent, like hands I couldn't brush away. "You know what I was thinking?" he said suddenly. I didn't want to know. I didn't want to hear whatever was about to come out of his mouth. But I looked up anyway because ignoring him felt more dangerous than engaging. "We should have coffee on the dock. Watch the sunrise. It's beautiful this time of morning." "I don't think that's a good idea." "Why not?" "It's just coffee, Celestine. Just 2 family members enjoying a peaceful morning." The way he said family made it sound like the opposite. Like we were anything but family. Against every instinct screaming at me to stay inside, to keep walls and doors between us, I found myself nodding. Because I didn't know what else to do. Because saying no felt like it would make things worse. Because I was still trying to convince myself that I was safe, that he wouldn't actually hurt me, that this was all in my head. So we took our coffee and walked down to the dock, the morning sun already hot on my shoulders, the lake water sparkling and peaceful like nothing in the world could ever be wrong. We sat on the edge, our feet dangling over the water, and for a moment, it almost felt normal. Almost felt like those family reunions from before, when Vincent was alive and everything made sense. But then Darnell started talking. "Janine left me, you know," he said, staring out at the water. "Filed for divorce last year. Said she couldn't do it anymore." "I'm sorry, Darnell. Divorce is hard." "You know why she left." He turned to look at me, and there was something dangerous in his eyes. Something that had been hiding behind that charming smile all along. "She said I couldn't love her the way she deserved. Said my heart wasn't in it. Said I was always somewhere else, thinking about someone else." My stomach dropped. I knew where this was going. God help me, I knew. "She was right," he continued. "I couldn't love Janine. Not the way she needed. Because my heart was always somewhere else. With someone I couldn't have." "Darnell, don't." "With someone my brother married before I ever got the chance to tell her how I felt." The world stopped. The birds stopped singing. The water stopped moving. Everything just stopped. "Do you remember the first time Vincent brought you to meet the family?" he asked, his voice soft now, almost tender. "It was his birthday party, 10 years ago. You walked into Mama's house wearing this yellow sundress, and I swear to God, Celestine, I forgot how to breathe. I watched my brother introduce you as his girlfriend, and I wanted to die. Because I knew, right then I knew, you were supposed to be mine." I stood up so fast I almost fell into the water. "I need to go inside."
"Why?"
"Because I'm finally telling you the truth. Because I'm finally being honest about what's been between us all these years. There's nothing between us, Darnell. There never was. I loved Vincent. I married Vincent. I built a life with Vincent. And now he's gone." Darnell stood up too, blocking my path back to the house. "He's gone, Celestine, and I'm still here. I've always been here. Waiting. Watching. Loving you from a distance because I had to. But I don't have to anymore." Tears were streaming down my face now, hot and angry. "You're sick. You need help." "I need you," he said, and the way he said it made every hair on my body stand up. "I've needed you for 10 years. And now, finally, there's nothing standing in our way. Vincent's memory is standing in our way. Your brother, who loved me, who was good to me, who would be disgusted by what you're saying right now." Something flickered across Darnell's face then. Anger. Real, raw anger that he'd been keeping locked up behind that smile. "Vincent didn't deserve you. He took you for granted. I watched him come home from work and barely kiss you hello. I watched him forget your anniversary 2 years in a row. I watched him prioritize everything and everyone over you. And I thought if she were mine, I would never do that. If she were mine, I would worship her every single day. But I wasn't yours." I screamed. "I was never yours. And I never will be." I shoved past him and ran back to the house, my coffee spilling all over the dock, my heart pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. I slammed the door behind me and locked it, then stood there shaking, trying to catch my breath, trying to figure out what to do next. I needed to leave.
"Right now."
I needed to pack my bag, get in my car, and drive away from this place, away from Darnell, away from this nightmare. But before I could move, I heard Mama Francine's voice calling from upstairs. "Celestine? Baby, is that you?" I wiped my face, tried to steady my voice. "Yes, Mama. It's me. Can you come up here for a minute? I need your help with something." I climbed the stairs on shaking legs and found Mama Francine sitting on the edge of her bed, looking tired and older than I'd ever seen her. She smiled when she saw me, but it was a weak smile, pained. "Mama, are you okay?" "Just my arthritis, acting up real bad, baby. But listen, I need you to do me a favor. I forgot to get collard greens from the store yesterday, and you know we can't have a Morrison reunion without my collard greens. Would you run to the grocery store for me? There's a Piggly Wiggly about 15 minutes down the road." The last thing I wanted to do was leave this house with Darnell. But I also didn't want to worry Mama Francine. Didn't want to tell her that her son, the son she raised and loved, was making me feel unsafe in what should have been a family sanctuary. Of course, Mama. I'll go right now. Thank you, baby. Darnell can go with you, help you carry everything. My blood ran cold. That's okay. I can manage. Nonsense. Darnell, she called out. Darnell, honey, come up here. I heard his footsteps on the stairs, and then he was there, standing in the doorway of Mama Francine's room, that smile back on his face like our conversation on the dock never happened. Yes, Mama? Go to the store with Celestine. Help her get the groceries. And pick up some more ice while you're there. Of course, Mama. Whatever you need. He looked at me. Ready when you are, Celestine. I wasn't ready. I would never be ready. But I couldn't argue without explaining why, and I couldn't explain why without breaking Mama Francine's heart. So I nodded and followed Darnell back downstairs, grabbed my purse, and walked out to my car. I'll drive, he said, reaching for my keys.
No.
It's my car. I'll drive. For a second, I thought he was going to argue. But then he shrugged and walked around to the passenger side. I got behind the wheel, started the engine, and pulled out of the driveway, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. The drive to the store was silent. Horribly, suffocatingly silent. Darnell stared out the window, his jaw clenched, his hands curled into fists on his lap. I could feel the tension radiating off him like heat. Could feel his anger simmering just beneath the surface. When we got to the Piggly Wiggly, I grabbed a cart and headed straight for the produce section, moving fast, trying to get this done as quickly as possible. But Darnell stayed close. Too close. Following me down every aisle, reaching over me to grab things off shelves, his body always just inches from mine. We were in the frozen food section when it happened. I was reaching for a bag of ice, and suddenly his hand was on my waist. Not a casual touch. Not an accidental brush. His hand was on my waist, his fingers pressing into my skin through my dress, pulling me back against him. I spun around and shoved him away. Don't. Don't what? He looked around at the other shoppers, that charming smile back in place, playing innocent. Don't show affection to my sister-in-law. We're family, Celestine. Family hugs. Family touches. I'm your late brother's widow, I said, my voice low and fierce. There's a difference. His face changed. The mask slipped. And what I saw underneath made me want to run screaming out of that store. Vincent's gone, Celestine. You need to accept that and move on. I am moving on, I said. But not with you. Never with you. His face darkened, his eyes going cold and hard. You don't mean that. Yes, I do. You're just scared. You're not ready yet.
But you will be.
I can wait. I've waited 10 years. I can wait a little longer. I left the cart right there in the middle of the frozen food aisle and walked out of the store. Darnell followed, calling my name, but I didn't stop. I got in my car, locked the doors, and sat there shaking, waiting for him to get in so I could drive us back to the lake house and figure out how to get away from him. He climbed into the passenger seat, and we drove back in complete silence. But this silence was different. This silence was dangerous. I could feel him stewing, could feel his anger building, and I knew that something bad was coming. I just didn't know when. We pulled up to the lake house, and I noticed another car in the driveway. Thank God. Someone else was here. I wouldn't be alone with him anymore. But when we walked inside, the house was empty. And there was a note on the kitchen counter in Mama Francine's handwriting. Baby, I had a dizzy spell. Mrs. Patterson from next door took me to urgent care, just to be safe. Don't worry, I'm fine, they're just running some tests. Darnell will keep you company. The rest of the family should be arriving this evening. Love you, Mama. My hand started shaking so badly, I almost dropped the note. I looked at Darnell, and he was smiling. Actually smiling. Looks like it's just us, he said. I pulled out my phone and texted Marquis immediately. Come now. Emergency. But he didn't respond. He was probably still driving, phone put away, focused on getting here. I tried calling. It went straight to voicemail. Looking for rescue? Darnell asked, moving closer. Your son won't be here for hours. And by then, you'll understand. You'll see that we're meant to be together. Darnell, you need to leave.
Right now.
Get in your car and leave. This is my family's house. I'm not going anywhere. He walked to the kitchen, pulled out a bottle of wine, and started opening it. Let's have lunch. Let's talk about this like adults. There's nothing to talk about. Oh, I think there's plenty to talk about. He poured 2 glasses of wine, held one out to me. Drink with me, Celestine. Relax. Let me explain how I feel. I didn't take the wine. Instead, I walked to the stove and started making tea, my hand shaking so badly the kettle rattled. I needed something to do. Needed to keep my hands busy. Needed to not fall apart completely. Darnell sat down at the kitchen table, sipping his wine, watching me. Always watching. I've loved you for 10 years, he said quietly. From the moment Vincent brought you home. Do you know how hard that's been? Watching him touch you? Kiss you? Watching you smile at him the way I wanted you to smile at me? Coming to your house for holidays and family dinners, sitting across the table from you, pretending to be nothing more than your brother-in-law when every cell in my body was screaming that you should be mine. Stop it, I whispered. I used to lie awake at night imagining what my life would be like if I'd met you first. If I'd been the one to take you on that first date. If I'd been the one to propose. If I'd been the one to wake up next to you every morning. Darnell, please. And then Vincent died. He said it so casually, like he was talking about the weather. And I know I should have been sad. He was my brother. But all I could think was, finally. Finally, she's free. Finally, I have a chance. I turned around to face him, tears streaming down my face. You're talking about your brother's death like it was a gift. Like his death was something good. What kind of person are you? I'm a man who knows what he wants. And I want you. Well, you can't have me, I screamed. Do you understand that?
You can't have me.
He stood up so fast his chair fell over backward. Why not? What's stopping us now? Vincent's gone. There's no one standing in our way. We can be together. We can have everything I've dreamed about for 10 years. Because I don't want you. I was crying now, sobbing. Because when I look at you, I don't see a man I could ever love. I see someone who disrespects his brother's memory. Someone who can't understand that no means no. Someone who makes me feel unsafe in my own skin. His face twisted into something ugly. Something hateful. Vincent didn't deserve you. Vincent was a good man. A kind man. The man I chose. The man I loved. The man I will always love. He's dead, Celestine, Darnell roared, slamming his fist on the table so hard the wine glasses jumped. He's dead and rotting in the ground, and I'm here. I'm alive. I can give you everything he couldn't. I can love you the way you deserve to be loved. This isn't love, I screamed back. This is obsession. This is sickness. Love doesn't ignore boundaries. Love doesn't make someone feel trapped and scared. Love doesn't. I didn't get to finish that sentence. Because Darnell lunged at me. I ran. I ran out of that kitchen, down the hallway, toward the stairs, but he was faster. He caught me at the bottom of the staircase, his hand wrapping around my arm, yanking me backward. Let go of me. Not until you listen. Not until you understand. I fought. I scratched at his hands, kicked at his legs, screamed at the top of my lungs even though there was no one around to hear me. He dragged me backward, and I grabbed onto the stair railing, holding on with everything I had. Stop fighting me, Celestine. Just stop and listen. Let me go. Let me go. I managed to break free, and I ran up those stairs like my life depended on it. Because maybe it did. Maybe this wasn't just about uncomfortable advances anymore. Maybe this was about survival. I made it to the bedroom I'd been sleeping in, slammed the door, and locked it. Then I pushed a chair under the doorknob the way they do in movies, even though I had no idea if it would actually work. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. 911. What's your emergency? My name is Celestine Morrison. I'm at 847 Lakeview Drive in Lake Oconee. My brother-in-law is trying to...
Boom.
The door shook. Darnell was kicking it. Ma'am? Ma'am, are you there? He's trying to break down the door. Please, Send someone. Please. Officers are on their way, ma'am. Stay on the line with me.
Boom. Boom.
The wood was splintering. The chair under the doorknob was sliding across the floor. Celestine. Darnell's voice was unrecognizable now.
Wild.
Desperate. Dangerous. Open this door. We need to talk. Stop being childish. Open this door. Ma'am, can you find a weapon? Anything to defend yourself. I looked around frantically. There was nothing. Just furniture and my suitcase and…
Crash.
The door burst open. The chair went flying. And there he was. Darnell stood in the doorway, his chest heaving, his eyes wild, and I didn't recognize him anymore. This wasn't Vincent's brother. This wasn't the man who gave that beautiful eulogy. This wasn't family. This was a monster. If you're still watching, please hit that subscribe button. Because what happens next, what my son walked in to find, is something every parent prays their child never has to see. And I need you to hear the rest of this story. I need you to understand how quickly trust can turn to terror. Let me ask you something, and I want you to really think about it. Have you ever been in a situation where you knew something was wrong, but you talked yourself out of trusting your instincts because you didn't want to cause problems? Have you ever stayed silent when you should have screamed? Leave your answer in the comments, because your story might help someone else recognize the danger before it's too late. The 911 dispatcher was still on the line when Darnell broke through that door, but my phone had fallen somewhere in the chaos, somewhere on the floor, and all I could hear was her voice getting smaller and smaller, asking, "Ma'am? Ma'am, are you there?" While I backed myself into the corner of that bedroom, my hands up in front of me like they could somehow protect me from what was about to happen. Darnell stood in the doorway, breathing hard, his shirt untucked, his hair wild, and there was something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Something that made every survival instinct in my body start screaming. He wasn't my brother-in-law anymore. He wasn't even Darnell anymore. He was something else entirely. Something dangerous. Something unhinged. "Celestine," he said, and his voice was almost gentle, almost tender, like he hadn't just broken down a door to get to me. "Why do you make me do this? Why do you make everything so difficult?" "Stay away from me," I whispered, my back pressed against the wall, nowhere left to go. "The police are coming.
They're on their way right now. You need to leave."
"I'm not leaving. Not until you understand. Not until you see what's been right in front of you, all this time." He took a step into the room, and I slid along the wall, trying to keep distance between us, trying to find an escape route that didn't exist. "Darnell, please. Please just go. We can forget this happened. We can forget." He laughed, and it was the most terrifying sound I'd ever heard. High and sharp and wrong. Forget 10 years of loving you? Forget watching you waste your life with my brother? Forget 6 months of waiting, of being patient, of giving you time to grieve? "I can't forget, Celestine. I won't forget. This isn't love," I screamed. "Love doesn't break down doors. Love doesn't make people afraid. This is sickness, Darnell. You need help." His face twisted. "You think I'm sick? I'm the only one who's been honest. I'm the only one who's told you the truth. Vincent never loved you the way I do. He never saw you the way I see you. Vincent respected me. Vincent honored me. Vincent never made me feel like—" I didn't get to finish.
He lunged.
I tried to run, tried to dodge past him to the door, but he was too fast. His hand caught my arm and yanked me backward, and then we were falling, crashing onto the bed, and I was screaming, screaming so loud my throat felt like it was tearing, screaming for help that wasn't coming, screaming for Marquis who was still miles away, screaming for Vincent who couldn't save me because he was dead and gone, and I was so terribly, horribly alone. Darnell's weight was on top of me, crushing me into the mattress, and his hands were everywhere. Grabbing, pulling, tearing at my dress. I fought back with everything I had. I scratched at his face, felt my nails drag down his cheek, felt skin come away under my fingernails. He yelled in pain but didn't stop. I kicked at him, my knee connecting with his stomach, but he was so much bigger, so much stronger, and he caught my wrists and pinned them above my head with one hand. "Stop fighting me," he shouted into my face, and I could smell the wine on his breath, sweet and sour and wrong. Just stop fighting.
This is meant to be.
We're meant to be. No, I screamed. No, no, I know. His free hand tore at the neckline of my dress, and I heard fabric ripping. Felt cool air on my skin where there shouldn't be cool air. And, in that moment I knew exactly what was about to happen. I knew that all those years of uncomfortable touches, all those lingering looks, all those inappropriate comments were building to this. This moment. This violation. This destruction of everything I was. I couldn't let it happen. I wouldn't let it happen. I twisted my body with every ounce of strength I had left, managed to free one hand, and I went for his eyes. My thumb jabbed into his eye socket, and he screamed, rearing back, his grip loosening just enough for me to shove him off, to roll off the bed, to scramble toward the door on my hands and knees. But he recovered too fast. His hand closed around my ankle, dragging me backward across the hardwood floor. My fingernails scraped against the wood, breaking, bleeding, trying to find purchase and finding nothing. "You're not leaving," he roared. "You're not leaving me. Not now. Not after everything I've done. Everything I've waited for." He flipped me over, and his face was bleeding where I'd scratched him, his eye already swelling where I'd jabbed it, and he looked like a monster from a nightmare. He straddled me right there on the floor, his knees on either side of my hips, trapping me, and his hands went around my throat. Not squeezing.
Not yet. But there.
A threat. A promise. "I love you," he said, and tears were streaming down his face, mixing with the blood. "I love you so much it's killing me. Why can't you see that? Why can't you love me back?" I couldn't breathe. Not because he was choking me, but because the weight of his obsession was suffocating. 10 years. He'd been carrying this for 10 years. Hiding it, nurturing it, letting it grow into something twisted and dark and deadly. "Darnell," I choked out. "Vincent loved you. He was your brother. He trusted you. He took you from me," Darnell screamed, and his hands tightened around my throat. Just a little. Just enough to make black spots dance in my vision. He knew how I felt. I told him. When he first started dating you, I told him I liked you, and he married you anyway. He married you to spite me. "That's not," I gasped, my hands clawing at his wrists. "That's not true. It is true. And now he's gone, and you're mine, and we can finally." And then I heard it. The most beautiful sound in the entire world. The screech of tires outside. A car door slamming. And a voice, my son's voice, yelling, "Mom, Mom, where are you?" Darnell's head snapped up, his hands loosening on my throat, and I sucked in air and screamed with everything I had left. "Marquis, up here. Help me." I heard him hit the front door, heard it slam open, heard his footsteps pounding through the cabin, and then he was on the stairs, taking them 3 at a time, and Darnell was trying to get up, trying to get off me, maybe to run, maybe to lock the door, but he was too late. The bedroom door exploded inward, and there was my son. Marquis took in the scene in a split second. Me on the floor, my dress torn, my throat red with Darnell's handprints. Darnell scrambling to his feet, wild-eyed and panicked. And something happened to my gentle, software engineer son in that moment. Something primal and ancient and protective beyond measure.
He roared.
Literally roared like an animal, and he launched himself across that room with a speed I didn't know human beings possessed. He hit Darnell like a linebacker, and they crashed through the doorway into the hallway, a tangle of fists and fury and righteous rage. I scrambled to my feet, clutching my torn dress, and staggered to the doorway. They were on the hallway floor, and Marquis was on top, and his fists were flying, connecting with Darnell's face, his ribs, anywhere he could reach. And he was crying, tears streaming down his face while he beat his uncle, while he punished the man who'd tried to destroy his mother. "How dare you?" Marquis screamed with each punch. "How dare you touch her? She's my mother. She trusted you. We all trusted you." Darnell tried to fight back. He was bigger, older, should have been stronger. But Marquis had something Darnell didn't. Marquis had love. Real love. The kind that protects instead of violates. The kind that sacrifices instead of takes. And that love gave him strength beyond anything physical. But Darnell managed to land a punch, caught Marquis in the jaw, and for a second, they rolled, grappling, crashing into the hallway table, sending a lamp flying. Darnell got on top, got his hands around Marquis' throat the same way he'd had his hands around mine, and I screamed.
No.
Get off him. Get OFF. I grabbed the broken lamp, the base heavy in my hands, and I swung it at Darnell's head. It connected with a sickening thud, and Darnell toppled sideways, dazed but not unconscious. Marquis used the opportunity to flip them again to get back on top, and this time when he started hitting, he didn't stop. Marquis. I screamed, because I could see it in his eyes. He was going to kill Darnell. He was going to beat him to death right there in that hallway, and as much as Darnell deserved it, as much as I wanted him to pay for what he'd done, I couldn't let my son become a murderer. I couldn't let Darnell take that from him too. Marquis, stop. You'll kill him. Stop. But he couldn't hear me. Or maybe he could hear me but couldn't stop. His fists kept flying, kept connecting, and Darnell's face was a mask of blood, his body going limp, no longer fighting back. I grabbed Marquis' arm, pulled at him with all my strength. Baby, stop. Stop. The police are coming. Let them handle it. Please. Something in my voice must have gotten through, because he froze, his fist raised for another blow, his chest heaving, his face twisted in anguish. He looked at his hands, covered in Darnell's blood, and then he looked at me, really looked at me, and he saw my torn dress, my bruised throat, my bleeding hands, and he let out a sound I'll never forget. A sob that came from somewhere so deep it could have been from his soul. Mama, he choked out. Mama, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I wasn't here sooner. You're here now, I whispered, tears streaming down my face. You're here now, and that's all that matters. Marquis grabbed Darnell, who was barely conscious, and flipped him onto his stomach with a violence that told me his rage was barely contained. He put his knee on Darnell's back, pinning him down, his hand on the back of Darnell's head, pressing his face into the hardwood floor. If you move, Marquis said, his voice deadly calm now, I will break your spine. Do you understand me? Not if you understand. Darnell, blood pouring from his nose and mouth, nodded slightly. And then we heard them. Sirens. Getting louder. Getting closer. The 911 call I'd made before my phone fell. They were coming. I collapsed against the wall, sliding down until I was sitting on the floor, my whole body shaking so badly, I thought I might fall apart completely. Marquis kept one knee on Darnell's back but reached out his other hand to me, and I took it, held it like a lifeline, like the only thing keeping me tethered to reality. I've got you, Mama, Marquis said, his voice breaking. I've got you. He'll never touch you again. I promise. I swear on Dad's grave, he'll never touch you again. The sirens were right outside now.
Car doors slamming.
Voices shouting. Footsteps on the porch. And then police officers were flooding into the cabin, up the stairs, and I'd never been so grateful to see strangers in my entire life. Police. Everyone stay where you are. My mother, Marquis said immediately, his voice steady despite the tears on his face. She needs help. He attacked her. Check on her first. 2 officers went to Darnell, pulling Marquis off him, handcuffing Darnell even though he could barely move. Another officer came to me, a woman with kind eyes and gentle hands, and she knelt down beside me. Ma'am, I'm Officer Rodriguez. You're safe now. Can you tell me your name? Celestine, I whispered. Celestine Morrison. Okay, Celestine. The paramedics are coming up now. They're going to check you out, okay? Can you tell me what happened here? Before I could answer, Darnell, even with blood pouring down his face, even with handcuffs on his wrists, even with 2 officers hauling him to his feet, started screaming. She led me on.
She wanted this.
She's been flirting with me for months. She invited me here. This is all a misunderstanding. The rage that went through me in that moment gave me strength I didn't know I had. I stood up, despite Officer Rodriguez trying to keep me sitting, and I looked Darnell right in his swollen, bloody eyes. I never invited you anywhere. I said, my voice shaking but clear. I never flirted with you. I never wanted your attention. And I have text messages, witnesses, and years of documentation of your inappropriate behavior. So you can lie all you want, but the truth is going to come out. And everyone is going to know exactly what kind of monster you are. You're crazy. You're a crazy, vindictive. Get him out of here, Officer Rodriguez said sharply to the officers holding Darnell.
Now.
Before I forget, I'm wearing a badge. They dragged him down the stairs, and I could hear him screaming the whole way. Screaming that I was lying. That I wanted him. That this was all my fault. His voice got fainter as they took him outside, put him in the squad car, and finally, he was gone. Paramedics came up, a man and a woman, and they were gentle as they looked me over. They checked my throat, took pictures of the bruising. They looked at my torn dress, at the scratches on my arms from where I'd been dragged across the floor. They bandaged my broken fingernails, cleaned the blood from my hands. Ma'am, we'd like to take you to the hospital, the female paramedic said softly. Get you fully checked out. Document your injuries properly. I'll go with her, Marquise said immediately. Son, you need medical attention too, the male paramedic said, looking at Marquis' split knuckles, his swelling jaw where Darnell had hit him. Both of you should come. But before we could leave, before we could go anywhere, I heard a voice downstairs. A voice I knew. A voice that made my heart break all over again. What's going on? Why are there police cars? Oh my God. Oh my God. Where's Celestine? Mama Francine. She came rushing up those stairs, moving faster than a 72-year-old woman with arthritis should be able to move, and when she saw me, sitting there with paramedics hovering, my dress torn, my throat bruised, she let out a wail that I'll hear for the rest of my life. Baby, what happened? Who did this to you? I couldn't answer. I couldn't make the words come out. How do you tell a mother that her son tried to rape you? How do you break a woman's heart like that? But Officer Rodriguez did it for me.
Gently.
Carefully. But truthfully. Ma'am, I'm sorry to have to tell you this, but your son Darnell has been arrested for assault and attempted sexual assault against Ms. Morrison. Mama Francine stood there, frozen, her hand over her mouth, tears streaming down her face.
No.
No, not Darnell. There must be some mistake. Darnell wouldn't. He's my baby boy. He wouldn't. Mama, I whispered, and she looked at me, really looked at me, and she saw the truth written all over my body. I'm sorry. She collapsed. Just collapsed right there in the hallway, and Marquis caught her, lowered her gently to the floor. She was sobbing, her whole body shaking, and I wanted to comfort her, wanted to tell her it would be okay, but I couldn't. Because it wouldn't be okay. Nothing about this was okay. My son, she kept saying. My baby boy did this? Oh God, Celestine, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I left you alone with him. I didn't know. I should have known. I should have seen. I slid over to her, despite the paramedics protesting, and I put my arms around her. You didn't know. None of us wanted to see it. But it's not your fault, Mama. Do you hear me? This is not your fault. He's my son. I raised him. What did I do wrong? What? You didn't do anything wrong. You raised a good man in Vincent. You are a good woman. Darnell made his own choices. His own sick, twisted choices. And that's on him. Only him. We sat there together, two women broken by the same man's violence, holding each other while police took statements, while paramedics tried to convince us to go to the hospital, while the lake house that should have been a place of family and love and reunion became a crime scene. Marquis called Serena. I heard him on the phone, his voice tight and controlled, telling his sister what happened, telling her to come home. And then he sat down beside me and Mama Francine, and he put his arms around both of us, and we just sat there, the three of us, holding on to each other while everything fell apart. Other family members started arriving for the reunion. Vincent's sisters, his cousins, his aunts and uncles. But instead of a celebration, they walked into a nightmare. Police cars everywhere. Darnell being loaded into an ambulance, handcuffed to the gurney, officers on either side. Me, sitting on the porch now, wrapped in a blanket someone had given me, giving my statement to a detective. I told him everything. Every uncomfortable touch. Every inappropriate comment. The Thanksgiving dinner 3 years ago. The funeral. The flowers showing up at my house. The conversation on the dock that morning. The grocery store. The attack. I showed him the text messages I'd sent Marquis. Can you come up tonight? Something feels off. Come now. Emergency. You did everything right, the detective said when I finished. You recognized danger. You asked for help. You called 911. You fought back. And you're alive. That's what matters. But was it? I was alive, yes. But was I really living? Or was I just another woman who would spend the rest of her life looking over her shoulder, wondering who to trust, wondering if the next hand that touched her meant comfort or violence? The family reunion was canceled, obviously. People left in shock, in tears, not understanding how this could happen. Not understanding how Darnell, who'd always been so charming, so helpful, so family-oriented, could do something like this. But I understood. I'd been trying not to understand for years, but I understood now. Predators don't look like monsters. They look like family. They look like friends. They look like people you should be able to trust. Serena arrived just as they were about to take me to the hospital. She came running up the porch steps, her medical textbook still in her arms from wherever she'd been studying, and when she saw me, she dropped everything and threw her arms around me.
Mom.
Mom. Oh my God, are you okay? I'm alive, I said, because that was the only truth I knew for certain. I'm alive, and that's something. She rode with me in the ambulance. Marquis followed in his car. And at the hospital, they did a full examination. A rape kit, even though the attack hadn't gone that far, just in case. Because that's what you do. You document everything. You prepare for the legal battle that's coming. Darnell was in the same hospital, under guard, getting treated for the beating Marquis had given him. Broken nose. Fractured eye socket. Cracked ribs. And I felt no sympathy. Not even a little bit. They kept me overnight for observation. Marquis and Serena stayed with me, one on each side of my hospital bed, and we didn't talk much. We just sat there, together, a family that had been broken but was somehow still intact. The next morning, a victim's advocate came to see me. She explained the legal process, what would happen next. Darnell was being charged with assault, attempted sexual assault, and breaking and entering. He'd make bail probably, but there would be a restraining order. A trial. Justice, hopefully. I have to ask, she said gently. Do you want to press charges? I looked at Marquis and Serena. I looked at my broken fingernails, my bruised throat, my torn life. And I knew my answer.
Yes.
I want him to pay for what he did. Not just to me, but to every woman he might hurt in the future if we don't stop him now. The weeks that followed were some of the hardest of my life. Harder even than losing Vincent, because at least Vincent's death was natural. It was tragic, but it was clean. This was dirty. This was messy. This was a violation that stained everything. I started therapy. Twice a week, sitting in a comfortable chair in a comfortable office, talking to a woman named Dr. Patricia Chun who had kind eyes and never once made me feel like I was crazy or overreacting or responsible for what happened. You're experiencing trauma, she told me. And trauma doesn't follow a timeline. Some days will be better than others. Some days you'll feel strong. Some days you'll feel broken. And all of those feelings are valid. The Morrison family was tore apart. Some believed me immediately. Vincent's sisters, his mother, his closest cousins. They cut Darnell off completely. Refused to visit him. Refused to speak to him. Told him he was no longer family. But others weren't so sure. They thought maybe I'd misunderstood. Maybe Darnell had been drinking and made a mistake. Maybe I'd led him on without realizing it. Those people I cut out of my life. Because I learned something important in those weeks. I learned that anyone who questioned my truth didn't deserve space in my life. Darnell made bail, like the advocate predicted. But the restraining order held. He couldn't come within 500 feet of me. Couldn't call.
Couldn't text.
Couldn't contact me through third parties. And if he violated it, he'd go straight back to jail. His lawyer tried to get him a plea deal. Assault instead of attempted sexual assault. Probation instead of prison time. But I refused. I refused to let him get away with anything less than what he deserved. The trial was set for 6 months out. 6 months of waiting. 6 months of living in limbo. 6 months of wondering if a jury of strangers would believe me or him. But in those 6 months, I learned something else. I learned that I was stronger than I thought. I went back to teaching, stood in front of my English classes, and taught Jane Eyre and The Handmaid's Tale, and all those stories about women surviving impossible things. And I understood them differently now. Understood them from the inside. Marquis barely left my side for the first month. He worked remotely, set up his laptop at my kitchen table, and just stayed close. Not hovering. Not suffocating. Just present. Just making sure I knew I wasn't alone. Serena came home every weekend, spending more time studying in my living room than in her apartment near medical school. My children wrapped me in a cocoon of love and protection, and slowly, painfully, I started to heal. I stopped wearing Vincent's cologne on my scarves, not because I didn't love him anymore, but because I was learning to love myself again. Learning to be Celestine Morrison, not Vincent's widow, not Darnell's victim.
Just Celestine. Just me.
One Saturday afternoon, about 3 months after the attack, I went to Vincent's grave. I hadn't been able to face it before. Hadn't been able to stand there and tell him what his brother had done. But that day, with the autumn leaves falling around me and the sun warm on my shoulders, I finally went. I placed fresh flowers on his headstone. Sunflowers, his favorite. And I sat down in the grass beside him, and I talked. "Thank you," I said softly, "for giving me Marquis. He has your strength and your heart, and that saved my life." The wind rustled through the trees, and I let myself believe it was Vincent answering, telling me he was proud, telling me he was sorry, telling me to keep going. "I'm going to be okay," I told him. "I don't know when.
I don't know how.
But I'm going to be okay. Because you raised a son who showed me what real love looks like, what real protection looks like, what real family looks like." I stayed there for an hour, just sitting with Vincent's memory, and when I finally left, I felt lighter. Not healed, not whole, but lighter. Now, months later, with the trial approaching, with Darnell's lawyer still trying to make deals, with the legal system grinding slowly forward, I have dinner with my children every Sunday. Marquis and Serena come over and we cook together and we laugh together, and we're building something new. Something that doesn't erase what happened, but doesn't let it define us either. Mama Francine calls me every week. She's in her own therapy now, processing her guilt, her grief, her horror at what her son became. And I tell her the same thing every time. "You didn't do this. He did." The Morrison family will never be what it was. Some bridges burned that can't be rebuilt. But that's okay. Because I learned that family isn't just about blood. Family is about who shows up, who believes you, who fights for you. People ask me if I saw the signs, if I knew something was wrong. And the truth is, yes, I did. But I ignored them because he was family. Because I didn't want to cause drama. Because I thought I was overreacting. Because I'd been taught my whole life that keeping the peace was more important than keeping myself safe. I learned something in that lake house, in that bedroom, in those terrifying moments when I thought my life was over. I learned that grief doesn't just reveal who people are. It reveals what they've been hiding. And I learned that my voice, my instincts, my boundaries are more important than anyone's comfort. More important than family harmony. More important than being polite or not making waves. I wear a new perfume now. Something light and floral that's just mine. I'm growing my hair out, letting more silver come in because Vincent loved it and I'm learning to love it too. I'm 48 years old and I'm starting over. Not because I want to, but because I have to. Because the alternative is letting Darnell take more from me than he already has. Vincent would want me to live. Really live. Not just survive. And I will. But on my terms, with my boundaries, surrounded by people who truly love me. The kind of love that protects instead of violates. The kind of love that lifts up instead of tears down. The kind of love that my son showed me when he broke every speed limit to save my life. If this story touched you, if any part of it felt familiar, if you've ever ignored red flags to keep the peace, I want you to know something. You're not alone. Trust your instincts. That little voice in your head that says something's wrong, listen to it. Your safety matters more than anyone's comfort. Your boundaries matter more than anyone's feelings. And you are never, ever responsible for someone else's actions. If someone makes you uncomfortable, you don't owe them an explanation. If someone violates your boundaries, you don't owe them forgiveness. If someone hurts you, you don't owe them silence. I'm sharing my story because silence protects predators. And I'm done protecting anyone but myself and the people I love. So if you found value in this story, if it made you think differently about trusting your instincts, please hit that subscribe button. Share this video with someone who might need to hear it. Because stories like mine, they're not unique. They happen every day in every community to women who think they're overreacting right up until the moment they're fighting for their lives. And let me ask you something before you go. Have you ever stayed in a situation that made you uncomfortable because you didn't want to seem difficult or dramatic? Drop your answer in the comments. Not for me, but for every other person reading who needs to know they're not alone. That their discomfort is valid. That their safety matters. Remember, you are not responsible for other people's actions. Ever. The only person responsible for what Darnell did is Darnell. And the only person responsible for what happens to you is the person who chooses to harm you.
Not you. Never you.
Stay safe. Trust your instincts. And know that surviving doesn't make you a victim. It makes you a warrior.